Okay, so since my last update on my Great Eastern Cutlery collection, I have got a bunch more knives. At least it certainly seems like it. So I figured I'd do one of these updates now because I'm probably not going to get any Great Eastern Cutlery knives for a while just because the market is crazy right now. So pretty much impossible to get them from the dealers. And then on the secondary market, the knives are ridiculously priced. That's why I've been buying a lot more Boker knives and some other uh, knives made by different manufacturers, even though Great Eastern Cutlery is like the gold standard of traditional pocket knives. But anyway, I'm going to stop talking too much about this and I'm going to get started on talking about my collection here. So, in front of me right now is the first Great Eastern Cutlery knife that I ever bought, and I bought this from Country Knives, which, if any of you know anything about the dealers for Great Eastern Cutlery, were one of the ones who started off originally charging a lot more than most of the other retailers, I guess. And this is the number 21 Bullbuster, which is like a large sod buster, pretty much. This one's in green linen micarta. I don't know why my camera's not focusing on this. It's very annoying. Um, okay, it's just, oh, there we go. Okay, green linen micarta. This is the a farm and field. Wow, this thing really doesn't focus very well. Okay, there we go. This is a farm and field, which is like the lower end of Great Eastern Cutlery knives. Made to be used really hard, I guess, like on farms and stuff. Um, and this was the first knife that I ever bought. It's in 1095 carbon steel. You can see it does have some patina on it, but it's nothing crazy. Um, I haven't carried this knife a whole lot. I mean, I carried it a lot when I first got it because it was the only one I had. But once I started buying some other Great Eastern cutlery knives and everything, I started carrying those more. And I just haven't carried this one a whole lot here recently. That being said, I probably won't ever get rid of it just because it was my first introduction to Great Eastern cutlery. Okay, so let's talk about a different knife now that we're done talking about that. And I'm just going to kind of grab them at random. I'm not doing them in any kind of order. This is a number 12 toothpick in they call this like pony cut bone or something. It's like amber. The jigging on this knife is fantastic. It's one of my favorite jigging patterns on any of my pocket knives. I think it looks really good. This is a Northfield line, so it's more polished and everything. Um, these weren't very popular when they came out because, I don't know, I guess people don't like toothpicks. As you can see, once again, it has patina on it here from cutting chicken, I think it was. But you can still see that Northfield unexcelled etch there. Um, and I haven't carried this knife crazy either, um, but I do like it. I like the bone on it especially, and it's a good size. It fits really well in my hand, and everything can get four fingers on it well, and it's comfortable to hold and everything. It's a good knife. I don't really understand why they didn't sell originally. Of course, they're all gone now because everybody went crazy on Great Eastern Cutlery. In this last year here, everybody went nuts and bought everything and put it on eBay for three times the price they paid for it because that's the Great Eastern Cutlery market in 2021. Um, but yeah, so that's the number 12 toothpick in I don't know what color they call this, but I think they call it like pony cut bone or something. But I like it, and it's the Northfield model. Okay, my Grail knife for a while. This is a TC Barlow. This was the 2020 or 2021 2021 release for Charlie Campagna for the sepia saw cut uh, TC Barlow. It's got this etch, the genuine Barlow etch. The bolsters are steel, and the rest of the knife is steel, which I really like. I like the saw cut bone. I think it looks really good. I do wish it was a slightly darker color, but I mean, I can't really complain because I've wanted a TC Barlow ever since I really realized they were a thing. Because I really do like Barlows, and these are like the gold standard of Barlows, in my opinion. That being said, I bought this on the secondary market on eBay, so as you guys can imagine, I paid way too much money for this knife. I haven't really carried it a whole lot. I need to carry it more and use it and everything since, it's a knife that I've wanted for so long. But I think part of me is just kind of holding on to it for a little while because of how much I paid for it. Eventually, I'll get over that and start carrying it more. But that's my TC Barlow, the only one that I have because they are so hard to get and so expensive on the secondary market. But I do like it. If I could have, if I possibly could have gotten one, I would have wanted one of those glitter gold ones too, because unlike everybody else seemed to, I thought they were pretty cool looking, and I would have gladly bought one, but I couldn't get one. So yeah. But I'm pretty happy with my sepia saw cut bone TC here. I think it looks great. I just need to carry it more. I don't know why my phone is like refusing to focus today. It's kind of annoying. Okay. Well, I need to. Okay. Well, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know why it's not focusing better. It's rather annoying. But but yeah. As you can see, there's a very slight amount of patina on it there. I think that's basically from cutting some tuna sandwiches stuff. But yeah, it's TC Barlow. Um, Another knife that I spent entirely too much money on secondary market is this beer and sausage knife, because as soon as Great Eastern Cutlery announced this, I really wanted one. Mainly because of this right here, because I really liked the fact that it had a fork on it, because a lot of times at work I'll buy like a thing of cut up like cantaloupe or watermelon or something and eat that on my lunch break. So it's kind of cool to have a fork, because then I don't have to use the pen blade on my pocket knife as a fork, or anything else that's goofy and dangerous like that. But yeah, it's got this fork slash bottle opener tool, the main blade, which is a spear point blade. That's really cool, and it has that B and S etch on it, and a long pull. The action on these isn't super stiff, and then it's got a beard comb then that's really thin and flexible and everything. Cool knife. It's got some interesting blades on it and everything. I really like that fork and bottle opener tool. Mine did have some slight play, so I did my normal thing with the pivot of the knife, and you can see the pivot sticking up a little bit. If I really cared that much, I could sand it down and polish it and everything and make it look better. But it's not really something I care about that much, so I'm not going to worry about it. Yeah, so that's the beer and sausage in Gabon ebony here. And then one of my most carried Great Eastern Cutlery knives, this 97 Beaver tail here. You can see on the blade here, it has quite a bit of patina on it and everything, some spotting, just because I carried it so much. My etch is crooked, which is something that I would have never noticed except for Logan Stout from Knife Thoughts. I think his channel is just called Logan Stout now. Pointed it out to me on Instagram. So my etch is crooked, but that doesn't matter to me. Really cool shield on these beaver tail knives. It's got a beaver on it. And of course, this is jigged Brazilian cherry or something like that. The action on this 97 is actually pretty good. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who complain about the action on these large Coke bottles that Great Eastern Cutlery made. This is probably one of my favorite patterns, and I kind of wish that I would have bought a third one of them, because I do have two of these. But I figured they'd be around a little bit longer, and then 2020 happened and everybody bought everything. And like I said, put it on eBay for way too much money. So these knives that nobody wanted are all gone now. But anyway, that's my 97 Beaver Tail, one of my most carried Great Eastern Cutlery knives, and one of my favorites. Going on to another one of my more carried Great Eastern Cutlery knives here is this 38 Special in tractor green jig bone, and you'll be able to see here the blade here has quite a bit of patina on it because I've carried this one probably the most out of all of my Great Eastern Cutlery knives. I love the green jig bone. This was another one of those patterns that nobody seemed to want. Everybody likes the 38, but they want the whittlers and everything. They don't want the single bladed, whatever you call this, serpentine jack, maybe. I don't know. But I really like this knife. I've carried it a bunch. It's one of my favorite patterns. In fact, I do have two of these, but my other one's in stag, and I'll show that here in a couple minutes probably. But yeah, this is just a Titty-Ute. It's got one of my favorite shields on it, which is just this real simple shield that says Titty-Ute on it here. That's one of my favorites when it comes to the shields on Great Eastern Cutlery knives. This knife did develop a little bit of side-to-side play over time of me using it, so I did my normal thing. You can see the pivot pin a little bit. Don't care because, it goes in my pocket with my keys and my change and everything, so it's just going to get scratched up again, so it doesn't matter. Okay. Moving on here. I'll show my second 97 now. This is my other 97 that I bought, and this is the yellow rose bone. The Texas Yellow Rose 97. It's got this smooth yellow bone that I thought was cool, and that cool rose shield there, which I also thought was really neat. This was a Northfield. It's got a different grind on it than the Titty-Ute 97s did. This side does scrape the liner a little bit, as you can see there. Not a big deal. It's just the way the blade's ground. It's just very slightly off center, so it scrapes a little bit. There was an actual problem with this knife, though, which was a problem that I had never seen before, which was this pile side cover moved around. So instead of doing the logical thing and sending it back, because I don't really feel like dealing with the mail and everything, I just super glued around it and kind of hoped that the super glue would soak in under the bone and hold it in place. And for right now, it's holding. I haven't really carried it since I did that, but I'm hoping it'll continue to hold. And if it doesn't, at some point I'll probably send it in, or maybe next year I'll go to the rendezvous and I'll bring it with me and see if they can repin it or whatever for me, because I really like this knife. Obviously, like I said, the 97, one of my favorite patterns. The action on this one's slightly less good than the action on the beaver tail one that I have, but it's still fine for a pocket knife. Pocket knives don't need to have like gator snaps that are gonna break my fingernails, as far as I'm concerned. Some people really like that. Speaking of gator snaps, my first 23 Pioneer Trapper, I once again have two of these. This is a two-bladed big old trapper, pretty much. It's got a main drop point blade here. Of course, once again, 1095 steel. My camera's being kind of choppy. I'm hoping that you guys can't see that. And then it's got this big spade blade, which I love. This one's in the Woodland micarta, which looks awesome, and I quite like it. I haven't carried this a whole bunch just because of how big of a knife it is. I do actually have a belt sheath for these knives from Great Eastern Cutlery, and they fit really well in a Buck 110 sheath as well. But I do really like these knives. It's just I haven't carried them a whole lot because of their massive size and weight and everything. But cool knife. One of the last patterns that was really easy to get in 2020. Okay, I guess I'll talk about my other 38 special now. This is my second 38 special. I got it on eBay for like, I don't remember if it was like $100 or $120 or something. It wasn't ridiculous for a Great Eastern Cutlery knife. This is a Northfield 38 special in stag. The action on this one isn't quite as good as the action on my green tractor jig bone, and the stag isn't, perfect stag or anything. but I like it. This was my first knife that I ever bought in stag handles, and I haven't carried it yet. I think I'm waiting to carry it until my green one gets more worn out, maybe, and then maybe I'll start carrying this. But for right now, this one just kind of stays in the tube, so it stays all nice and shiny and everything. I just haven't felt like carrying it and everything since I have my other 38. But yeah, this is my 38 special in Sandbar Stag. Uh, yeah. And then 93. This one's in the canvas micarta. They did a couple other handle materials. It's got a big sheep's foot blade that I think Great Eastern Cutlery was calling like the ram's foot blade or whatever. I did polish the patina off of this one because there's a spot there and I was trying to get rid of that. Didn't ever actually get rid of it, but I did polish off the patina a little bit. I've carried this one quite a bit, not nearly as much as my 38 or my 97 Beaver tail, but I have carried it. You can kind of see from the back spring and everything here that it has been in my pocket for a while. This was a run of Great Eastern Cutlery knives before 2020 that was really like sought after. This was one of the most popular ones in, what was it, 2019. Man, I really wish I could get my friggin' phone to focus for me. Yeah, 2019. Um, one of the more popular ones before the mad 2020 dash of whatever happened. I guess coronavirus made everybody crazy for Great Eastern Cutlery knives. I'm not sure. But yeah, cool knife. Don't really carry it a whole lot, but it's neat to have and everything. I like sheep's foot blades. But a lot of the times I like to have another blade with the sheep's foot blade because sheep's foot blade's good for opening packages and everything, but not so good for cutting food a lot of the time. Like one of my major use cases for a pocket knife is cutting a sandwich in half, and a sheep's foot blade isn't great for that. Now, if you're just cutting strawberries or something, it works fine for that, but not good for cutting like a sandwich or something, that you got to put down to cut. All right, my second 23 Trapper is this, I forget what they called this, like antique autumn bone or something. Somebody will correct me, I'm sure, about all these, what the cover names and everything are. This is a Northfield, more polished and everything. Action on this one's really good, obviously. Same blade setup, your drop point, your spade blade. Spade blade does scrape the liner a little bit when you go to open it, just because of how hard you need to open these. And the spade blade did whack the back spring on this knife, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to show. Especially not if my camera doesn't want to focus. Okay, you can kind of see, I think. There's a little strip of leather in there to help the spade blade not hit the back spring, so I don't have to work. So I don't have to worry about carefully closing it. I take a sip of coffee. My throat was getting froggy there or whatever. Cool unexcelled shield. These covers are great. They're not they're all kinds of different, like you can see there. It's like more of like a natural contour, which I do like. And once again, just like my other 23, I haven't carried this a whole lot just because of the size of it. Although occasionally I will carry them, put them in the belt sheath, or just throw them in my pocket and carry them. Most of the time I just throw them in my pocket. But if I'm going hiking or something and I want to carry a 23, a lot of times I'll throw them in the sheath, just because that's easier. But yeah, cool knives. Not one of the more popular knives, at least not when they first came out. What next? Okay. Second ever Great Eastern Cutlery knife that I bought was this 44 Buffalo Jack. And this one's in Gabon Ebony. And as you might be able to tell by the bolsters here, if I can get it to focus on them, it was focused and then it decided not to be focused anymore. I don't know why. Phone's being annoying today. But the bolsters are pretty scratched up because this has spent a lot of time in my pocket. You can see here on the pen blade, if if I can show it off. There's quite a bit of spotting on it just from me holding it in my hand and everything while I'm using the main clip point here. And the action on these 44s is great. I love it. This is just a simple Titty 44 gun stock. One of my favorite patterns because it's such a usable setup here. Ouch, just cut myself. Whoops. I'll continue to film. Hopefully it doesn't bleed too bad, but I just cut myself trying to get that pen blade open. Pattern production premiere, this was the first 44 gun stock they made, I guess. You know, the first pattern for the gun stock that they made in this size. They made a 22 Magnum gun stock too, I think. But yeah, one of my favorite knives. Second one I ever bought. And you know, it's just great. The action on these is fantastic. And the blade setup is great too. You get a clip point and a rather large pen blade. I really like the Gabon Ebony. I kind of wish I would have bought one of the jig bone when I had the chance to, but I didn't. So, okay, I'm bleeding pretty good here. I guess I'll try to wrap something around that quick because I don't really want to stop filming. This is the danger with doing stuff like this. You end up cutting yourself. Okay, moving on. 25 Barlow. I bought one of these back when I figured I wasn't ever going to get a TC Barlow. So for like 2 months or whatever, this was one of my Grail knives. It's a cute little knife, you know, real little Barlow. This neat little spear point blade here that's rather small. You know, it's like 2¼ inches long, something like that. Just a neat little knife, and this is in Pioneer bone, I think they called this. Just cool. This side doesn't fit up against the bolster great, but you know, that's just the way it is. Action on this knife isn't horrible, but it was a lot better before I ruined it because it had a little bit of side-to-side play, so I did the thing to fix that I do, and it kind of messed up the action just a little bit on close. But it's still not bad. Cute little knife. Nice little knife to carry if you're just not really doing anything serious that you're going to need a bigger knife for, but you still want to have a pocket knife. And, you know, I do like it. If you're one of those people who likes to carry like a watch pocket knife, it would be good for that. But yeah, I'd usually just throw it down in my pocket with everything else. But that's the 25 Barlow. The 25 pattern is pretty cool. I think it's a pretty popular one. But yeah, 25 Barlow. Okay, I still got quite a few to go here. I think these are the 62. Let me make sure. Yeah, the 62. Half the Easy Pocket Congress. This is in the, I forget what they called it. I think they might have called it Blood Red Jig Bone, kind of. Another cool shield that just says Titty on it. The main blade on this is a Wharncliffe blade, a rather small Wharncliffe blade. This knife's really comfortable to hold because of the, you know, the way that the handle is shaped. And then your secondary blade's this little pen blade here. Haven't really carried it a whole lot, but you know, it's a neat little knife. I really like the red jig bone, and I should probably carry it more, but a lot of times when I'm carrying a pocket knife, like I said, one of my use cases is cutting a sandwich in half, and once again, the Wharncliffe and the sheepsfoot blades don't really work great for that because of the straight edge. But you know, cool little knife. Still glad I bought it. I bought this one on eBay too for a reasonable price back before everything went crazy. Although honestly, I think you can still kind of find these on the secondary market for not insane prices because they were one of the least popular patterns, I think. At least it seemed that way. Okay. Another one of these knives that wasn't selling before the whatever happened in 2020 were these 15 bale and chain boys knives. And this one's in antique yellow jig bone, something like that. Really cool jigging on this knife. One of my favorites, just like the number 12 toothpick. Of course, it's just your standard boy's knife. This one's got a spear point blade. Once again, I think everything's steel. You know, the bolsters, the liners, the back springs. I think everything's steel. It's got this bail on it. When I got the knife, it came with a chain to attach to like a button on like an overall or something. Of course, I don't ever wear overalls because I'm not a farmer. So I left the bail on it because I kind of like it. But I took the chain off. And at some point, if I feel like putting the chain back on it, I always can. And this is another one of those knives that I kind of wish I would have gotten a second one of, but I kind of figured they'd be around for a while because they had sat on shelves for so long. But everybody bought them because something happened and everybody went crazy, like I said. Um, Neat little knife, good size to use and everything. It's the same size as the TC Barlow because they're both 15s. Of course, this one's not a Barlow. But neat little knife, carried it a bunch, used it a bunch, really like it. Really like the covers on this knife. But, you know, um, so that's the 15 Bale and Chain boys knife, the Huckleberry boys knife, I believe they called it. Okay, moving on to another knife that I wanted for a while that I spent too much money on the secondary market on eBay, and that's this 86 oil field jack, which I believe is a jumbo jack pattern. It's got your main clip point here, which is really cool. You know, really large clip point blade, just over 3 inches, about 3¼ inches. Really big clip point blade. The knife itself is pretty large, fairly thick and everything, so it feels good in hand. And then you have a secondary, I guess they'd call this a coping blade, but for me it's just a sheep's foot blade. So this is a really nice blade setup for me because I really like clip point blades and I really like sheep's foot blades. This is the second cover choice that I would have chose if I had a choice, I guess, would be my way of saying that. The one that I would have really wanted would have been the oil sucker rod wood, which is kind of like this green colored wood that they got from these oil rods that they used to use in Titusville. Couldn't get that. This is the oily creek bone covers, which look awesome as well. And the main thing that I wanted was I wanted this titty wrench shield if I was going to get one of these. So I did get that. I did have an opportunity to buy one of the tortoise shell acrylic ones, and I didn't jump on that at the time. And I really wish I would have because I could have gotten one of these for just over $100. But unfortunately, I waited too long, and so I got one of the ones that I really wanted, but I paid like too much money for it, pretty much. But you know, that's life of the secondary market and everything. Haven't really carried this one a whole lot. I'm carrying this one today, actually. Really cool pattern, you know, really nice size and everything. But for whatever reason, I just haven't carried it a whole lot here since I got it. Okay, another knife that I haven't carried a whole lot since I got it is this Urban Jack. I got in on the reserves for these for collector knives, and I was kind of hoping I was going to be able to get one of the green jig bone ones. Unfortunately, they were out because I waited too long, I guess. So I ended up with the green canvas micarta, which is a fine handle material. I just don't like it quite as much as that green jig bone. But yeah, you get your, you know, boy's knife here with the spear blade. It's got this cool etch on it with this guy with his fancy pompadour, I believe they'd call that haircut, and a beard and mustache and everything in like an apron. Your Urban Jack shield, which is pretty cool. And then you get a slightly more robust beard comb than you got on the beer and sausage knife. Pretty cool knife setup as far as I'm concerned. I would have rather had a boy's knife with a bottle cap, a cap lifter, I guess they'd call that, or a bottle opener. Would have rather had one of those, but this is kind of neat too. I just haven't carried it a whole lot because most of the time when I want to carry a boy's knife, I carry this one because I like this one more. But the Urban Jack's pretty cool too. Okay, I got 3 more to go here, and then I'm gonna put a bandage on my hand. 74 in the what do they call this? Purple black. I forget what they call it. This is like dark purple jig or something. I don't remember. It's a lot darker than it is lighter. And here right now it looks really dark, but you can see a little bit of purple up here. And of course around like the back of it here, there's some purple. But this is the, I believe they call it the Mustang, the 74 Mustang. Drop point blade. I think the Stallion's a clip point, which I would have preferred, I think, but you know. Action on this knife's really good. Um, you know, opens well and everything. Pretty well made. The size of this knife is really decent for like, everyday pocket knife. Pretty thin, so it doesn't really take up a lot of room in your pocket. But yeah, I just haven't carried this a whole lot either, because usually I have another knife that I'd rather carry more. But it is a cool knife. I don't know if I carry it enough, if the bones will lighten up, if the bone covers will lighten up a little bit. I would like that because purple is my favorite color. Of course, there's not very much purple in this. It's just a slight amount. But yeah, that's the 74 Mustang in this black purple. I don't remember what they called it. Somebody will correct me down in the comments, I'm sure. You guys always seem to know what you're talking about. I just basically don't keep track of it that much because I don't really care. Dixie Stockman, neat little Stockman setup here. You get your long clip point. I don't remember if they call this a California clip point blade or what exactly they call this, Turkish clip, maybe something like that. Clip blade. Instead of a spay blade, you get a Warncliffe. And then instead of the sheep's foot, you get a drop point. I would have rather had a sheep's foot instead of the Warncliffe personally, but I do appreciate them getting rid of the spay blade on a Stockman just because there's not much use for a spay blade, honestly. I'm not a farmer, so I don't need to spay animals. I have carried this one a decent amount, not as much as a lot of the other knives that I have. But usually these days when I want to carry a Stockman, I carry one of my Boker Stockmans that I have. Once again, cool bone covers. The jigging isn't my favorite on this. It looks too like perfect, I guess. I kind of like more of like a random jig pattern cover. Case does that really well. Some of Great Eastern Cutlery's covers are great. Some of them look more like machine manufactured, which I guess they probably are. But I like it when it doesn't look like that. Blades fit together pretty well. I do think that the Warncliffe and the drop point rub a little bit. On a 3-bladed 2-back spring knife, that's pretty much to be expected. I never care when my Stockmans rub a little bit, as long as it's not crazy. But that's just something to kind of expect with knives that have more than one blade sharing a back spring. But yeah, knife's done really well. The action on it's not great. The action on the clip point blade's pretty good, but I think the action on this drop point's the one that's not very good. Yeah, it's not very good, but it's not the end of the world or anything. As long as the clip point action's pretty good, which it is, it's good enough to keep it open for the most part. To get past a certain point, then it doesn't spring back. But the action's good enough on the clip point blade, which is probably going to be the main blade that you're going to be using with this knife. But yeah, done really well. I wish the action on the drop point was a little bit better, but I mean, it seems to be a thing with Stockmans that the third blade that's on the other side than the two other blades usually doesn't have as good of an action, because the Warncliffe has a pretty good action too. It's just this drop point. But yeah, it's kind of just a thing with Stockmans that happens. So I can deal with that. It's not the end of the world. All right, now the last Great Eastern Cutlery knife. I was lucky enough to get one of these from a dealer. I want to say it was GP Knives, but I might be thinking wrong. I'm not really sure. But this is a 38 English whittler. Yeah, that's what it was called. And this is the Northfield model with these awesome jig bone covers here, which are great looking. Kind of reminds me of like a pick bone, I think is what they called it. But it's a 3-blade whittler, split back whittler. So you got 2 back springs for the main Wharncliffe blade here. And then, of course, a back spring each for these smaller blades. You got this little sheep's foot that I guess would probably be called a coping blade. And these little blades have half stops. And then you have a little pen blade here. Cool little setup. 38 is one of my favorite patterns. I really like the 38 special, so I figured, I might as well try one of these 38 whittlers since I had the chance to buy one. Haven't carried it a whole lot just because for me it's not a super useful blade setup. But I've been thinking about ordering some wood blocks or something and trying to start like carving. So this knife would be great for that, along with the 62 would also be great for that. But a lot of people didn't like this shield. It's not my favorite shield, but I don't really care. If I ever really wanted to, I could stamp like initials in that, which would be kind of cool. But yeah, neat knife. Haven't carried it a bunch just because of my use cases aren't really there for it. At some point, I think I might order some basswood or something and try to carve. That might be fun. But as of right now, I haven't used it a whole lot. But this one's done really well. This is a really nice put together knife. It's no Grindling whittler, which sell for ridiculous money these days. And it is a slightly more useful blade. Set up your main blade on the Grindling whittler. It was a clip point. But I do like this knife quite a lot. I really like the covers on this one just because they're so good looking. But anyway, that's my Great Eastern Cutlery collection here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get, I'm probably not going to be, I'm not going to be able to get all of these on camera because I didn't really realize that I had so many, to be honest. I mean, I started pulling them out and it's like, wow, I kind of have a lot of these. So, I mean, I think officially a Great Eastern Cutlery collector at this point because I have so many of them. And they are great knives. They're just really hard to get these days. But anyway, that's going to be it for this video. This video is almost 40 minutes long. I gotta, clean my finger and put a bandage on it probably, since I cut myself while filming this, which is kind of funny. But anyway, I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll see you in the next video.